Hello, seedy people. How are you doing? See, there's a bunch of folks who are here, and as usual, I'd love for you to say hello in the chat box and maybe mention where you're from, farm name if you have one. I just it's nice to know who's here. Hi Rochelle, hi Nat, hi Jay. Good to see you here. Jay from Laughing Springs Farm, Nat from Dancing with Flowers and Flowers in Central Indiana. Well, I'm going to have to be able to speak a little bit clearer if I'm going to be presenting. Hannon from Wakefield, Quebec. Oh, nice to meet you virtually. Rochelle from Prairie Garden Seeds. I'm thrilled to see you here. And Miriam from in Ontario, Lasagna in Riverton. Celeste, Tannenbaum Wild Foods Alliance in Ohio, Shanty, Whipstone Farm in Arizona, Holly from Maine. I wonder if is that Holly Cedarholm? And Josh from Common Ground Farm in South Carolina, Sophie from Broad Fork Farm in Richmond, Virginia. Hi, Holly. It's fun to see you there. It's a lot of people that I know I haven't seen in a while here. This is great. Jim is there too with you, Rochelle. Michaela from BC, Lisa from Victoria, BC, used to work with Spanish Organics. Oh, hi, nice to see you there. Now you're with Farm Folk, City Folk. That's awesome. So I'm going to talk today about how to sell seeds to seed companies. I'm going to start off with a brief intro of who I am, and then an overview of what we're going to look at, and then we'll do it. And then at the end, it's hard to cover everything. And at the end, there's going to be a Q&A period, and ask your questions at that point. And I'm happy to fill in any blanks of what I haven't done. And so this is me. I'm Dan Brisebois, and I am one of the farmers of Tournesol Cooperative Farm. We are a worker co-op that started in the fall of 2004. We started with 5 people in the worker co-op, and from there, it's just grown. Now we have 9 members in our co-op, and somewhere between 17 and 20 people working for the farm, members and non-members included. And folks who do work with us for 18 months are able to request to become co-op members. So we're just hoping that it just keeps growing, that the more and more co-op members to kind of keep the business going and be a sustainable, or just the long term. We are situated in Les Cèdres, Quebec. This is in Canada. So we're about 45 minutes west of Montreal. And this means that I farm with a winter. So, we get into the spring and into the field in early May, and we can grow, our first frost date in the fall is somewhere between mid-September and mid-October, depending on the year. And we're out of the field almost completely by November 1st, especially seed crops. And so we are at Tournesol. We grow vegetables for 500 weekly CSA members, and we also have a seed company. And about half the seeds that we sell, we grow ourselves, and then we work with a network of contract growers for some of the rest, and also buy some in some wholesale. And so, just a little bit of a overview of my relationship with seed contracts. So in 2005, our first growing season, we did 110 CSA shares, a couple farmers markets, and we sold $600 in seed contracts to 2 seed companies. It was, I think, 3 tomato varieties. In 2006, we we were still only with those 2 seed companies, and we sold more seed to them. And that was most of our seed sales. But we also started a small PDF seed catalog, and I had about 20 varieties in it. By 2012, at that point, we were selling to about 10 or a dozen companies. I don't remember exactly. In my head, it's a dozen. It might have been a little bit less than that. And our online seed, we had an online seed store by then. We thought 200 varieties or so. And at this point, the online store is probably bigger than the seed contracts. At this point, we're selling, so 2022 now, we do sell a few seed to seed companies, but we don't really do contracts anymore. And it's kind of just excess from what we have. And we have a network of friends that we know and that we sell stuff to, because we know they use it and they want it. And we buy stuff from other people that we know. There's about 5 to 10 folks who grow seed for Tournesol. And it's, there's a few in Quebec and Ontario who grow a fair amount, but then we also have a network of who grow specifically for us and a few other companies. And we have a network of growers for the West Coast who also grow some stuff for us. But the bulk of our sales at this point are through our online store and our seed rack program. So we've kind of flipped from being, predominantly contract growing to now predominantly retail. So kind of live both sides of it. And that's kind of the hat that I'm wearing, presenting here. And I have two other hats I'll mention. One is I am the host of the Seed Growers podcast. The first season was last spring. If you haven't listened to it and you love seeds, I think you're in for a good time, but I'm biased being the host. The second season is probably coming this spring. My other hat is the Farmer Spreadsheet Academy. There will be a little bit of spreadsheet stuff in this, but this is not a heavy spreadsheets presentation. And with the Farmer Spreadsheet Academy, I like to teach or share about crop planning, farm management, all that kind of stuff. So what we're going to do today, we're going to talk about sort of two types of seed companies, and then we're going to talk about two ways that you can sell seeds to seed companies. And then sort of the details of what it means to sell the seed company to a seed company. We're going to talk about, is selling bulk seed profitable? And I'm talking about bulk seed meaning like a large quantity of seed that you're selling to a couple individuals or a couple companies versus selling a lot of small packs to a lot of people. And that's a whole other presentation for another time. And then I'm going to talk about 5 types of seed that seed companies want. And I mean, it feels like a little bit of a clickbaity title, but I'm going to try to narrow it down, and then how to trust your own seeds. This is especially an important one when you are a new seed grower. And I see a few people have come in. There's Mary from Terrace, BC, growing a few varieties under Sunwild Seeds. Nice to see you. Peachtree from Toronto, Ontario. Nice to see you too. And Christine from Saugeen Peninsula. So nice to see you. And Jay, I'm glad that you're enjoying the podcast. Oh, and Kim from Crystal Lake, Illinois. Nice to see you too. So is this the right? Okay, I think this is the wrong header, but what it's supposed to be is 2 types of seed companies. And I have broken them, and this is it's a simplified way to think about it. It's mainly to think about it in terms of who's in the landscape. There's a lot of seed companies, and there's so many different ways to think about them. But the way that I think about it is often smaller bioregional seed companies and larger seed companies. And a smaller bioregional seed company are companies that are usually, they tend to be smaller operations, maybe often farm-based, but not necessarily. And so if they're farm-based, meaning they grow a fair amount of their own seed, and focusing a little bit on crops that do well and where they are, and kind of hence the bioregional perspective. And then larger seed companies, and this is larger just a function of the small bioregional seed companies, and the larger seed companies, I might call those people like High Mowing, Johnny's, Fedco. And if you look in a big seed world, these larger seed companies are actually very small businesses. But for a lot of us seedy people who grow seed, this is kind of the scales that we might be thinking about. And there are very few seed companies out there that grow 100% of their own seed. Almost all seed companies buy some or all of their seed, and they need to get it from people. And that's kind of, so that's who you could be selling to. And a good way to think about these two is the smaller bioregional seed companies are probably an easier first sale because, they take smaller volumes, and they're often dealing with a bunch of, or kind of dealing with a bunch of smaller growers, and kind of used to the, not the vagaries, but just the uncertainty that comes with being a small seed grower, and kind of understand the realities. The larger seed companies do buy seed from small seed growers, but often they're often looking for a larger volume. That might mean that it's a lower price point per pound, and it might be the wrong place to be getting into if you're not already selling seed companies. But like I know Fedco does buy a lot from small seed companies, and so we'll talk a bit more about what the next steps are when you want to start working with somebody, but this is a way to think about it. And I'm sure that you can think of small seed companies in your area. And that's right. Our starting point is go talk to them if you're looking to who to purchase seed from. Jess from I guess Busy's here. Nice to see you. And Sherry in Eugene, Oregon. Winifred, formerly from Eugene, on your way to France. Nice to see you here too. Okay, so we'll come back to these seed companies a bit. Actually, I guess my slides flipped. So what I'm going to go into is two types of seeds of, what is it? It's two ways that you can sell seeds to seed companies. So one way is a seed contract, where you approach a seed company, you ask them what they are looking for, and then they say, we're looking for this, and then they give you the details, they'll provide some seed to you, and then you grow the seed and send it to them. Another way is on speculation, and this means you grow a seed crop, and then you approach a seed company with it. And speculation is very risky from a sales perspective, because I mean, if you're a market grower, vegetable grower, you know that you can't just bring anything to the farmer's market. You got to bring the stuff that the clients want. And so if you go to market every week, you know what they want. If you first time you go to market, you don't necessarily know what you want. And it's a little like that with approaching a seed company. Maybe you grow a bunch of a fantastic tomato, but they don't sell that tomato, or they already have a grower for that. So growing on speculation is not necessarily a great idea. However, if you're already growing seed for yourself, if you're growing a lot of brassica greens for your salad mixes, you're growing beans, you're growing your own tomato seeds, and if you have a surplus, then speculation might be an interesting thing. And what happens over time is you can start to know what people are needing, and kind of, even though it's not on contract, you might grow on speculation, knowing that you have a potential market for it. And also, if you build a relationship with a seed company, over time they'll know what you have, and that they can plan a little bit around that too. So that's two ways to think about it: speculation and seed contracts. And I think if you're looking for a reliable sale, seed contracts are the way to go. If you're looking at something that kind of fits into a seed process that's already on your farm, speculation can be interesting. Speculation is also interesting. Like, the challenge you're going to get with growing seed contracts, if you don't have a lot of experience, is that people might not take a risk on you, and they're going to be worried about not getting a contract, not getting success, that they're counting on that seed. And so if you're a new seed grower, growing a few crops to get larger volumes of seed that you're kind of learning, developing your experience on, is a great way to get to that place. And so the speculation, the sales that you can make with it, is a bonus, but the main purpose is learning how to grow seed. So it's good to know about that. Hi, Jolene, Short Season Seeds, Wood Grain Farm in Northern BC. Nice to see you. And speculation, oh yeah, I already mentioned this. So here are some details that come from when you're selling seed. And so there's going to be a variety. That's an important thing. There's going to be a quantity that the seed is purchased. So maybe it's 1 pound that somebody wants to purchase from you. And then there'll be a price per pound. And this is something that you want to get set up before you actually grow the seed. So $400 a pound. And then it's important to be clear, the stock seed, who provides the stock seed? Is it you, or is it the seed company? And so that's something that's to be thought through. And then the isolation. So this 200 feet is specifically in the context of a tomato. The seed company will tell you how far they would like the seeds to be placed, from the crops to be placed, so you avoid cross-pollination. And then they'll also talk about any growing practices they want. It might involve roguing. So maybe there's an E after the G. I may have spelling in roguing. Sorry about that. But roguing, so like, are they expecting you to go in and take out 5 or 10% of the population, or can you just let it go? Is there other kind of quality control? Do they want you to do any post-harvest treatments with heat treatment or other things? And then also, what is a minimum germination rate? Maybe, in a tomato, I mean, you'd probably get 100%, but there's probably going to be a minimum rate that they would accept. So these are things that need to be agreed on. And then there'll probably be a delivery date when they want the seed by. on our with our farm and with our growers, we like it to be by December 1st. There might be bonuses. So with our contract growers, if people can get the seed to us before December 1st, we give them a 10% additional. And this is something that was inspired by working with Fedco, that they would give 10% additional to get the seed early, and it's a way that they can get it into their system. I know that, I don't know if it's still true about high mowing, they actually, instead of a bonus for earliness, they have a bonus for surpassing certain germination standards. There's different ways that can work. It's good to understand it before you start the contract growing. And then what happens if you grow more seed than you need? And can you sell it to someone else? Does a seed company want to have first dibs? Are you allowed to keep it at all, or do you have to get rid of it? Like, these are things to know about. And, you know, if it's a generic variety or something that's fairly common, they might not care that you sell it. But if it's a variety that only that seed company carries, they might not want it to be on the market through other people. So those are things that you need to think through. And or will have to be figured out. Oh, and hi, Kelly from Affinity Farm in Moscow, Idaho. And Hank from Avoca Seeds in Oregon. I was just emailing with you recently. Nice to see you here. And so a year in the life of a seed grower. Sometime between November and February, you're going to want to negotiate details with the seed company. You know, figure out what it is that they want from you and get that all worked out. Kind of probably by March. It depends a little bit on the crops, but you want to get the seed by then, and you want to start your plants that you can be growing out. And then, you know, there's a growing season sometime between April to September or so. You're going to grow the crop. And this is in the case of an annual. If you're doing a perennial, you're going to have to grow that steckling first, get it through the winter, and then, you know, the whole growing season afterwards. But let's just talk an annual. So, you know, you grow the crop. And then in September to November, you're going to clean the seed and you're going to dry the seed and make it all processed and pretty. And then sometime after that, you're going to ship the seed to the seed company. And then in November to January, after they've gotten the seed company is going to do a germ test on it, or they'll send it out to their labs, to another lab to have a germ test done on it. They might also do other quality control, like disease tests and that kind of stuff. And then you'll probably start talking about next year's contract at this point and negotiating those details. And then sometime in the early next year, you get paid. And what I want to highlight here is you might, you know, it's a long cycle when you're selling seed to seed companies sometimes. And you might be starting the next cycle before the last one ends. So there can be some cash flow situations. You might want to talk to the seed companies that you're working with and figure out if you can get an advance, if that's something, if most of your revenue is coming from seed contracts, there might be, and you have a relationship with the companies, you might be able to negotiate something in that regards. But it is something to know that the cash flow is different than if you're a vegetable grower or a CSA farmer, and especially because you're being paid after you do all this work. Now, is selling bulk seed profitable? And I'm going to share a spreadsheet. This is, if you go to this URL, you get to a landing page that you can get it, but I'll also share the actual URL directly with you down here, and you can click on that. And I am going to share my screen with, we'll do a little bit of spreadsheet work. Now, when you get into the screen, open this, put it in another browser, and come back to the presentation. So you're looking at me and what the screen is here, because I'm going to be walking through it here. You won't necessarily see it. And I don't see anybody yet in there. Is it shared? Anyone with the link has it? So anyway, you're welcome. Oh yeah, this says 17 people are in it. Yes, I just had it expanded. I'm going to maybe make it a little bit bigger, and I'll walk you through a couple sections. So you can make a copy of this sheet to use for yourself. There's some instruction on the first page. I have a page with some reference to 2 books that have yields, and there's also a spreadsheet I made in the past where you can go look there, how to convert yields that you might find that aren't clear into bed feed or bed meters. I also have a sample price reference. This is something that Nikos at Fedco shared with me about 5 or 6 years ago. Looking at the prices now, I think they've changed, but I don't have a confirmation about that. But here's just something so you have some ideas of some numbers. If you don't have any otherwise. And something that Tom Stearns mentioned to me from High Mowing Seeds is that if you look at the biggest format that a seed is sold at in a seed catalog, assuming they sell bulk, about half that price might be what they've paid for the seed. So that's something also to kind of, if you're curious what numbers might be. But you can also contact a seed company and ask them. They will tell you some of that. So here's the calculator. And this is something that, it's a spreadsheet I created a little bit earlier, maybe a year ago. You may have even seen it if you've been following my spreadsheet work, to kind of forecast the number of plants you need. I've modified it a bit in this case. And so you got crops and species. And I'm going to come back to column C in a second. But I have column D and E. These are sample yields for 100 bed foot. So a bed that's 100 foot long. Maybe it's one row, maybe it's 2, 3 rows, but whatever, it's one bed. And for each of those crops, and what I think is, so these are, when you start growing seed, what you realize is, like, if you have no experience, you can have a crop failure pretty easily. But once you start to reliably be able to harvest seed, this is kind of the range that I see on some of these crops. Now, you might be getting higher, it might be getting lower. This is not a recommendation. It's just a guide to kind of think about it. So kind of a high, low, and a high, and I put the average pounds per bed foot per 100 feet turned into bed feet. So this is, if it's 5 pounds of amaranth seed to 20 pounds of amaranth seed per 100 bed foot, that comes to 0.125. So that's like 1/8 of a pound of you can get per bed foot. And so with this formula, then you could put in a price. And so I'm going to go over to beans. And so let's say you can get $12 a pound for beans. Over here, the math says that comes to $2.10 a bed foot, or about $18,000 per acre. If you could get 20 pounds per bean, that's up to $30,000 per acre. And this is assuming kind of this range of yields. If you got a higher yield, that'll also raise it. And if you get more per pound, that'll also raise it. And then to scroll down, and I'm going to look at a tomato. Let's say you you can get $400 a pound on tomatoes. And that's, you're getting 1 to 4 pounds out of a 100-foot bed. That comes to $10 per bed foot, or about $67,000 an acre. And I'm going to let you crunch this. You can put in the numbers that you want, and you can pay attention to what comes out. And so the question here is saving seed profitable? And what I'm giving you is a gross sales per acre, which is not a profitability analysis. A profitability analysis would take your income minus your expenses, and then you know what the profit is. And you want to make sure you account for your hours and expenses. And I mean, that's a great exercise. But what I find in general, on most farms, most smaller farms, let's say you're, less than an acre to 4 or 5 acres, looking at the dollars of gross sales that you can generate per acre, there's a strong correlation to what the profit's actually going to be. If you make more dollars per acre, you're probably making more profit. So looking at something that's $67,000 an acre, like these tomatoes, versus $30,000 an acre for the beans, there's probably more profit coming out of the tomatoes than coming out of the beans. However, I could tell you that we'll only buy a few pounds of tomato seed a year, but we might buy hundreds, if not more. I don't know if it's thousands, but hundreds of pounds of beans a year. So there's that to think about too. And I guess I'm getting ahead for the next part of the presentation. Now, how does this compare with being a market grower? And so if I don't have a spreadsheet for that here, but if you're a market grower and in one bed of lettuce, you're growing 3 rows of lettuce and you're placing them 1 foot apart in the row, that means you can get 3 lettuce heads in a bed foot of lettuce. Let's say you can harvest 2 of the 3. The groundhog gets the other, or the bolts, but let's say you can sell 2 of those 3, and you can sell them for $3 a piece. That's a potential of $6 a bed foot, which actually comes to about, $45,000 an acre. So what seed, if you're able to get a yield, so that's like once you're experienced, if you're able to get a yield, seed is often comparable in the dollars per acre that you might get from a market garden crop. However, it's not always easy to stack multiple crops after another. You could get 3 lettuces one after the other, depending on your climate. Or you could get like a radish and a microgreen and then a lettuce out of the same area, stacking those dollars per acre. Whereas if you're growing beans, you have the growing season, and you might not be able to get much before or after out of it. So so those are some thoughts with the seed, and so you are welcome to crunch these numbers the way you want to crunch them. And I'm going to get back into the presentation, and I'm going to, where's my slides? And I'm going to talk about, what am I going to talk about next? Something wonderful. I'm going to talk about 5 types of seed that seed companies want. And I'm going to start off this, before I get into this list, to say that there's a market for all kinds of seeds. And so this is not the only thing that you can sell. And, already looking at that other sheet, you're probably, if you can sell tomato seed, that's a great thing, because it's probably not the hardest seed to grow and fairly profitable for the space that it takes. But there are some things that I think you're going to find there's a higher demand for than others, especially when you're dealing with bioregional small seed companies. So the first one is going to be organic seeds. And I just put this broadly. If you're certified, so when somebody approaches us to grow seeds for us, the first question I always ask, are you certified organic? Because we're certified organic and we sell organic seeds, so we can only buy and sell organic seeds. And this eliminates a whole group of people. And so this is one thing, that if you have organic seeds, you have much easier time selling your seeds than if you're not organic seeds to seed companies. Now, there are some seed companies that are not certified organic, and it's not an important thing for them. That's not just that, then that's less of a value for them. But in general, in my experience, being certified organic is definitely a good thing. The next seed that I think seed companies are often looking for are seeds that are very popular and are really bulky. So beans and peas. We, on our farm, cannot grow enough beans and peas to meet the demand. We used to use our own bean and pea seeds for our own market garden production. At this point, we actually buy in bean and pea seeds, and we grow our own seed that we're selling through our seed company, because we just can't keep up, and we don't offer any bulk. So for us, that's something that's really important. And I know it's true for a lot of small seed companies. Beans and peas are something that they're always looking for. However, the price point is not going to be as high as some other things, but the volume may make up for that. Now, crops that cross really easily are also something that seed companies are usually looking for, especially squash. And so on our farm at Turnasol, we have a market garden. So we grow all kinds of squash for market. And that means that we don't have an isolation that we can grow a squash, especially a pepo squash, without it cross-pollinating. And this is something that's not unique to us. And so squash is definitely something, and other cucurbits are something that seed companies are often looking for because they cross easily. And it's true for a lot of other crossers, except other crossers, like if you're growing, other crossers are often easier to isolate than squashes. And there's so much diversity of squash that you might want to have in your catalog that is interest to have it in, to find growers for it. So that's why I highlight this crop specifically. Now, also seeds that don't grow well in a bioregional seed company's climate is also something they're looking for. And this is really my perspective. But like at Turnasol, we can't reliably grow good carrots or crops from the umbel family, or quinopods like beets, chard, spinach. We can grow the quinopods better than the umbels, but the germination is just not always there. And that's something that we're usually looking to get from growers in other seed climates. And I know there's other seed companies that are also looking for that. So that's another group of seed that you'll find is interesting. And then there's the secret good stuff. And this is what I think all seed companies love. And the secret good stuff is stuff that a seed grower comes to and that they already have a relationship with, and that like they've already been stewarding, and they have a great variety, and they are looking for a market to share it with. Now, this is a picture of a breeding project I'm working on, where I've crossed a number of different radishes. This is, you may have seen the kind of, I have some like black radishes on the outside with red or purple on the inside. This is a parallel line where I've been working a lot with cylindrical radishes, and I've thrown in some called the green luongo radish in there too. Anyway, my secret good stuff. But so what is secret good stuff that might be on your farm? So it might be things that you've been selecting for a while. You know, it's a variety of squash that you've been selecting, and it fits great in your days to maturity. You know, it has a nice, reliable fruit set, but just you've been selecting it under your conditions. It can be a standard variety that you've been selecting for a while, and it's just adapted to your climate, and it's better, and something that you're going to keep growing. It might be something that you've been breeding, so like the radishes I showed, or something else, you know, that you've been breeding it. And it could be a finished variety that you've been selecting, you know, and it's got fairly stable, but it could also have a bit of diversity, and especially with something fun. Seed companies are always looking for something new, and that's a way for them to get something. That's the secret good stuff. And these are things that you've developed a relationship with, and that means that, you know, you're going to keep growing them, and that you're stewarding them. And so when somebody approaches me to grow seed for us, there's definitely things I'm looking for, but I want them to grow something that I know, like my ideal is for them to grow something that they're going to keep growing, and that they're going to keep selecting, and that's going to get better and better. And that's kind of my vision of a seed landscape where people are stewarding stuff in their bioregions, and, you know, a seed company can be a way to distribute that to a broader public. So this is something also. This is another type of seed that is fantastic. And now, if you're just new to seed, you might not have secret good stuff, but if you start saving seed, and you know, you start selecting, and you keep a couple things that are crossed up, and you stabilize them, you will eventually have secret good stuff. And so it comes with time. So now the last part I'm going to go into is, and we're going to have a Q&A. So if I haven't answered the stuff that you want to know, and I know there are seed people on here too, so I'm curious to see what they have to say about different questions. But so how to trust your own seeds. And this is something that is, when you are new to growing seed, there's so much uncertainty. You know, you're worried about growing it. Then you're worried about, are you going to know when it's ready? And then you're going to worry about, is it ready right now? And you're going to worry about, do I know how to clean it? You know, and you finally get to the seed, and then you start to worry, is it cross-pollinated? Is it going to germinate? And, you know, you can do a germ test, and that's good. But the cross-pollination, that's something that you're only going to know the next time you grow it out. And so this is a challenge that all new seed growers have to go through, is this crisis of confidence, and like not knowing if you have something that's valuable, or I don't know, seed is valuable, it's the wrong word, but it just that you have something that has that fits the need that you're trying to do with it. You know, either grow a true to type variety on your farm, or if you're selling it to somebody, you know, you're going to be worried, are they selling out crossed up seed? So this kind of, I want to talk about two crops and how that changes that confidence. So this is some arugula, and if you plant arugula in the spring, you know, you plant it in May, and it goes to seed in mid-end June, and you've harvested it in early August, you clean it up, you could be seeding that arugula August 10th, and it might be germinating 4 days later. And, you know, if you're growing it for a salad green, and you're growing 100 bed feet, and there's, I don't know, 5 rows per bed foot, and you're doing it 30 seeds per row, you've got thousands and thousands and thousands of seeds down there. Now, arugula doesn't easily cross with anything, so you probably won't see any crossing, but you see it pop up. You know it's doing well. You know it's reliable, and it does a job for you. Let's say you grow a tatsoi seed, some Brassica rapa, which does cross very easily, and you grow it out, and you've grown 100 bed feet, and you've got 10,000 seeds there, and there's no crossing. You can be pretty confident that that seed is good. And so even before you ship it, you can know that that seed is good. And if you grow 3 or 4 seed crops and you've seized the seed all the time in your salad mixes, you're going to feel really, really strong about the seed quality you have, as much in terms of its germination vigor, and then also its true to typeness, or trueness to type. And then now contrast this with a zucchini or a squash, where you right off the bat, you know they cross with everything. Well, and that's a little bit hyperbole, but I mean they cross with other squash easily if they're the same species. And you can do a germ test, but if you harvest your squash in September and you extract the seed, the germ test is the only thing you've done. And that's on 1 or 200, maybe 400 seeds. It's not until the next year that you're going to grow it out. And it probably won't be, unless your eye is really well developed, you probably won't know until the squash is setting fruit how true to type that squash is and see the cross. And then even so, depending on the scale of your garden, if you grow 100 plants out, you're only looking at 100 plants. And so if you see 1 or 2 crossers, you don't know, does that mean that 2% of your whole lot is crossed up? Or is it just that you happen to choose particularly non-crossed up seeds? It's just really hard to know. Now, if you're growing 10,000 zucchini out the next year, but I'd be surprised about that. But if you're growing that many and you only see 2 crossed up, then you're probably not going to worry about it. But that's something that growing squash seed, it usually takes, I think it takes more years of growing it to start to feel that you're doing a really good job on it, just by seeing the results of what you have. And so that means that some seeds, it's going to take you a longer time to feel really confident with. And that confidence is really important. One, because you don't want to sell a bad product to a seed company or to anybody. And if it's crossed up and someone's looking for a specific variety, they're not going to be happy. And the seed company might not want to do business with you again. But so that's one thing about it. But you also, having the confidence of knowing your seed is amazing, is what's going to make it easier for you to sell your seed to seed companies, to negotiate better conditions for yourself, and then to also just feel ready to offer more things. And I think that's really important. Rochelle asked, am I going to make this recording of this presentation available afterwards? It is. I'm going to send it out tomorrow in my Friday email, so you have a chance to watch it at that point. And I'm probably going to put it on YouTube also. Some of the presentations I only let live for a month or so, but I think this one I'm going to put on YouTube, so it'll have an indefinite life afterwards. Now, so what's next after this presentation? If you want to sell seeds to seed companies, I would say start by making a list of seed companies in your area. And your area could be your town, if they're there, but it could be your province or your state, or your a clump of states or provinces in your area, like a bioregion, and start by talking to them. So send them an email or DM them on Instagram. I think email is better than a DM. That's maybe just me. You could call them up also. And if you go to a conference and they're at the conference, just walk over. And with time when they're not, if they're flocked with people, don't go then. But one of the dead times, go over and say hi, and talk to them, and say, do you grow seed? Do you buy seed from seed growers? And just say that you're interested in it and see what happens. So that's the next step if you're interested in this. So now I'm going to wrap up by talking a bit more about a few things I do. So through the Farmer Spreadsheet Academy, I do have a couple courses that I promote or sell, online courses. So they're at spreadsheet.farm/courses. There's 2 I have. One is called Farm Spreadsheets for All Seasons. Registration is currently closed. So I don't know if this is just a tease. It's going to open again in early January. And so this is a crop planning course, kind of figure out from a sales plan what you're growing, start off with your financial goals, then make your sales plan, and then your crop plan to support that. And I guess it's predominantly it's designed around people who are growing annual crops, a lot of vegetable growers. There is a seed growers mini course that's going to be part of it. I'm recording it right now. It'll be available by the end of December. So the next time this registration opens, it'll be part of it. So that if you're interested in kind of crop planning specific with seeds, that'll be part of the course too. And then I have another course, and this one registration is open, called the Harvest System. So this is a longer course. You know, it's 50 or 60 short videos, and you get all the templates for this. And then there's some live office hours. The Harvest System Design, this is a short course that's live on January 19th, and registrations are open up until that point. And this is about setting up effective harvest mornings and wash station routines. So if you love ergonomics and workflow and systems, and the lens I'm looking at is predominantly through vegetable growing. Some of it does transfer over to seed. Maybe not as much as some stuff, but I mean, I think efficiency on a farm is always important. So that's something that's there. If you're interested in those, they're on my website, spreadsheet.farm/courses. Now, every month I also do a free online workshop. That's what you're watching right now. And next, I think it's going to be, and I'm toying with this idea called What You Need for Your First Crop Plan. And this is, a few people have been mentioning recently, how can you crop plan when you're a new grower? And I'm trying to answer that question in this. And I've answered it in some recent news emails, but this is what I'm going to try to put it together for this presentation. So before we get into the Q&A, one more thing. So the secret good stuff that seed companies are looking for, right? I mentioned that. That's also what you're looking for when you save seed. So the same things that a seed company is trying to get, you know, is often what you might be looking for in that seed. And so that's something that you might be growing seed for a seed company. That's a great way for revenue generation. But I think you also should be growing seed for yourself, and definitely do work on that. And you're building a long-term relationship that supports farming and our food systems. And so you should go and grow some seed. And I know some of you are already doing that, and those of you who aren't, I incite you to grow at least one variety and save that seed, even if it's just a handful of seed. It's something that is important to get those skills, and I think it'll change your life. So thank you so much for listening to this. And we got time for questions. It's 2:40, so easily a 15, 20 minutes of questions if they're there, and if they're not, we can also wrap up. But thanks so much. Kelly asked, does Turnusol have a way of incentivizing higher germ rates? No, we don't. Not at this point. Right now, our bonus is really aimed on getting seeds earlier. It's not something that we've explored. And I guess I should say, like, one thing I've suddenly worried, like this presentation is not specifically an invitation for everybody to offer us seed. You're welcome to contact us if you're trying to grow seed, but we can only accommodate so much. It's more that I know that there are, we have a landscape of small seed companies and people interested in seed, and kind of getting this conversation, not the conversation going, because it's already going, but getting people to think about it. So Alex asks, do I have a good resource on the details of selective breeding and how to stabilize varieties? There is a great resource, and I'm going to see, I wrote a blog post. Let's see if I can find it quickly. So this is, here's a post. Rowan White has a book called Breeding Organic Vegetables. And so this is a short book, a book review I did. I may have even reviewed it twice in different posts. And there's a PDF. Let me see if it's still good. I should check that out. It's on eOrganic. Oh yeah, I mean, I can just share the PDF, though you're welcome to go to my blog too. This PDF, and it's a fantastic book. I think it's great. And if you aren't into saving seed, breeding seed already, you're going to be by the end of this. There's also Carol Deppy's book called Vegetable Breeding, or Breeding. What is it called? Anyway, if you look for Carol Deppy's book on breeding vegetables, it's a great one too. Okay. There's a lot of questions that came in. What's an example of one of the smallest contracts you could grow as a new contract grower? So it doesn't have to be big. Like when we started growing seeds, I think we were growing like 3 or 4 ounces, like 1/4 pounds of a tomato for a couple seed companies. So the smaller the seed, the less volume a seed company needs, and the more they might be interested in small amounts. And some seed companies are selling tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of packs, but other times they're only selling a couple hundred, or even less than 100. And so it doesn't have to be very much that they need. So what's the most profitable crops for seeds? That question, I think there's a few parts that make a seed crop profitable, and you can look at the yield. And so like some of the flowers can be incredibly profitable to grow, but what's important is you have to have a market for it. So somebody has to be willing to purchase it from you. In that case, a seed can be very profitable. If you have a very high profit crop, but no one's going to purchase for you, it's less valuable. I think of sort of annual vegetables, stuff like tomatoes, peppers, eggplants are fairly profitable generally just because there's a lot of yield. If you get into biennials, I think that there can be like carrots and that I think there can be a profit. Actually, I have less experience with that, so I'm not going to pronounce myself on that. I hope I'm not dodging the question too much. Jolene asks, what are some models for small seed companies to share, trade, seed with each other, or operate a nonprofit? You've seen small seed companies offer 50% of sales back to growers. How would that work? So yeah, there's a few companies that I do know that have different models like that. So I know True Love Seeds, they're growers. I think they give back half the seeds. I think Salt Spring Seeds in where are they? In Salt Spring Island in BC with Dan Jason. There's another seed company in Quebec called Grand Portage that I know they often have similar relationships with their growers. And one thing with that, and I think they might have different models. I don't know the ins and outs, but it's a question of, do you pack the seeds for them and send it to them? Like some of those seed companies, you'll pack the seeds yourself and you'll send them the seeds. And then there's a question, do you get paid for all the seeds that you send or only paid for the seeds that get sold? There's different relationships to work out. That is one thing that, like in our case, we do work on a per pound basis, and we aim for prices that are profitable for our growers and for us, and we're always kind of reevaluating them. But they are less than 50% of what's in a seed pack. But in our case, we're often buying seeds for what we think is 2 to 3 years. And we're buying it kind of on speculation of the future. And if we can sell it all, that's great for us. But sometimes we do get stuck with seed that we can't sell. So that's a risk that a seed company takes on. So something to think about. But I do think like True Love Seeds has a really, it's a beautiful company and the great, that may be a place to look for. And Salt Spring Seeds with Dan Jason. And there are others out there that maybe you can comment in the comments if you know of any. Hank mentions you've gotten, so Hank says, we have gotten a high germination bonus from a couple other companies, including High Mowing Seeds. Like it's either timing or high germ, not both. Yeah, so it's hard to get both. You start to do bonuses on both things. That's a great comment. Okay, so Rochelle asked how to breed your own vegetable varieties. That sounds like the right title. That was one of the first seed books I read, After Seed to Seed by Susan Ashworth, which is a great book also. But this How to Breed Your Own Vegetable Varieties, it may have ruined me. It just opened so many doors of what was amazing to do with seeds. And, there you go. Or actually, no. Jessica says, breed your own vegetable varieties. Anyway, it's a title like that. How can you tell the names of the books you mentioned at the beginning again? I have actually a resource list that so I'm going to put it in here. I should have shared this in the bend. I have a resource list at seedgrowers.farm. If you go there, you'll see, you can sign up for my emails, but I think if you're on this workshop, you probably already get my emails. There's a couple of recorded workshops there. There's some other seed saving resources, but if you scroll down, something that says list of seed growing resources is a download the list. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen and download the list. And if you open that up, there is a Google Doc with different books that I like. And so you'll find those there. What cleaning? Okay, so here, Rochelle mentions, when you talk about constant seed, just wondering about in our short growing season, we tend to harvest the first seeds of things. And for example, with leaf crops, we wonder if that encourages early bolting and things like lettuce, arugula, etc. Any thoughts on that? So I'll come back to the thing about the confidence of growing your seed. I'll answer the question also, but the confidence of growing your seed is if you're selecting, and I know you're in a short season, but if you're growing that seed out the next year, and the stuff that you're not growing just for seed, but growing for a vegetable, if you like what it's doing, then that's good, and that's going to build your confidence. Now, in terms of encouraging for early bolting and things like lettuce, arugula, I think that there can be a possibility for that. But I mean, definitely, if you keep selecting for the earliest bolting things will bolt earlier. And I guess what you want to offset then is what you want to be looking for is a plant with a good frame. Do you have a nice lettuce head before it bolts, or does it bolt when it's still grown, when it's still just small? If you can get that nice lettuce head and you can get 1 or 2 weeks of cutting or eating out of it before it bolts, then that's probably good. So that's what you're looking for. And with some of those crops, you probably can. You can also extend the season if you find that it's not working. You can extend the season by tunnels or even planting in the fall and overwintering stuff. Sarah asked, have I experimented with selling land-raised veggies? And so with a land-raised veggie, I think what you're talking about is like Grexes or other populations that are a number of different varieties that have crossed together and have crossed together multiple times. And then you have a population of different stuff. And so we have a couple varieties like that. We have one is called the Winter Greens Mix, which is a mix of different brassicas that we've been selecting for cold hardiness, and they're just all crossed up. And we're looking for diversity always. And we have a Mighty Mustard Mix, which is a mix of different gentias that we've been selecting for diversity. So those are some things. And I'm not 100% sure, but I'm probably going to be selling some of our winter radishes, which are a population of this year. So we do. And I think that if you're selling to a seed company, they might be really, and if your mix is really pretty, it has a good story behind it, it's really resistant. Like I know Joseph Lofthouse has a lot of land-race varieties that I think are short season, and I don't have a lot of experience with them, but I do know a lot of people love them. This it's something that might be the secret good stuff for a seed company. Peachtree mentions I love Ujama Farms. They're doing some amazing seed work too. Yeah, they're a great place. I don't know them personally, but I've been watching kind of the formation, and so it's a great farm for people to check out and seeing the relationships they're building. And I think it's predominantly African American cultivars that they're growing, or sort of African ancestral seeds that they're growing. But yeah, it's a great. But I don't know a lot about how they work. What cleaning equipment do I wish I bought earlier in our seed career? Well, so you can get a lot done with a couple box fans and some screens, and you can do a lot with screens that you can, like hardware cloth that you buy from a hardware store, and I would really recommend getting comfortable with that and getting comfortable with winnowing with the wind. And I know some people use, any kind of spaghetti colander or greenhouse tray that has like different meshes. Now, we do have a whole range of seed stuff that we have for final cleaning. I think the one thing that, one thing that we got this year is a Winnow Wizard. And it's one, do I wish we'd gotten it earlier? I don't know, but it's replaced so much of our other seed cleaning. I think it's fantastic. And if you're growing a lot of seed, I highly endorse it. If you're growing small amounts, then I think figure out how to use a box fan effectively. There's also the Real Seed Cleaner from Real Seeds in Wales. So if you type in Real Seed Cleaner, like REAL, you'll find and that's a flow through like air column type system that you can make yourself, which we don't have one, but I know a lot of people love it. We have other types of air column stuff that we've been using. So Kim asked for brassicas. You notice a disclaimer from Haimon that the seeds are tested for black rot. Is the grower responsible for treating, testing seed for disease prior to selling it to a seed company? So I can't speak for that because, like, there's specific states in the U.S. that have laws about specific diseases, and I don't know if I don't know if they have to send in a sample that gets tested before the seed will receive. I'm not totally sure how that all works, so I can't speak about that. But that is something that, depending where you are and the contract, that might be something that you have to work with. Okay, so we've been going through these questions, and I think I've gotten to the bottom of them. If I've skipped your question, you can maybe repeat it if I haven't seen it. But if you have other questions, now would be a time. If not, I guess it's time to start wrapping up. And so I encourage you to. So if you're not already growing seed, I guess the first thing is start saving some seed, and probably start saving seed before you start selling seed, before you get a seed contract. But if you have been growing seeds, reach out to some seed companies, see what they might be interested in, and see how that goes. And one way or the other, I wish you a fantastic end of afternoon, at least from my time zone. And I'll see you possibly in a month, or in emails, or in the social media. And take care of yourselves. Bye.